Have you ever felt like someone was watching you in an empty office? I was working the night shift and thought I was going crazy with fatigue until I heard someone typing quickly and confidently on a keyboard in the complete darkness of an empty workstation. I worked the night shift at a customer service call center for about 6 months. It wasn't a job anyone wanted. 8 hours of angry people yelling about their cable or internet, usually over problems I had no control over. But it paid more than day shift, and at the time, I needed that difference. My hours were 11 at night to 7 in the morning. By the end of each shift, I felt hollowed out, like my body was still awake, but everything else had shut down. The call center occupied one floor of an old office building at the edge of an industrial park. During the day, other companies worked there, but at night it was just us, about 15 operators spread across a floor designed for more than 100. Rows of empty cubicles extended in every direction, fabric walls forming narrow corridors that all looked the same in the low light. Most of us sat together near the center, where the overhead lights were fully on. The outer sections stayed dim or completely dark. Management didn't bother lighting areas no one was supposed to be using. Calls came through automatically. You logged in, put on your headset, and waited. Sometimes it was non-stop. Other times, usually between 3 and 4 in the morning, the queue would slow to almost nothing. During those stretches, the building felt too quiet. You could hear computers humming, someone coughing a few rows away, the faint buzz of fluorescent lights, and occasionally other sounds. I noticed it for the first time during my second week. It was around 3:30. I'd just finished a call and was typing notes when I heard footsteps behind me, somewhere in the darker part of the floor. Slow, steady steps, like someone walking between cubicles without urgency. I turned, expecting to see a coworker stretching their legs, or maybe someone from maintenance. There was no one there. The footsteps continued for a few seconds, then stopped. I assumed it was the cleaning crew, even though they usually came closer to dawn. Later that night, I mentioned it to Denise, who'd been on nights longer than anyone else. She listened without reacting and told me not to worry. Old buildings made noise. You got used to it. When I asked what kind of noise sounded like pacing, she just shrugged and changed the subject. But it didn't stop. Over the next few weeks, I heard footsteps regularly, always in the darker sections. Sometimes there were other sounds too. A chair rolling, a drawer opening. Once, the sound of typing, fast and precise, coming from rows of empty desks. It lasted several minutes, then cut off abruptly. A few of the newer employees noticed it too. We'd talk about it quietly during breaks. The ones who'd been there longer never joined those conversations. If anything, they seemed irritated that we brought it up at all. About a month in, something happened that I still don't have an explanation for. It was another slow night. I hadn't had a call in nearly half an hour. I was scrolling through my phone trying to stay awake when I heard my name. Someone said it clearly from the dark section to my left, a woman's voice, calm, unfamiliar. I looked up and answered without thinking, asking who it was. No response. I waited, listening. Nothing. I told myself I'd imagined it. Fatigue does strange things. 5 minutes later, it happened again. My name, same voice, same direction. That time, I stood up. I don't know why. Fear was part of it, but so was frustration. I was tired of pretending nothing was happening. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through rows of empty cubicles as I walked. Everything looked abandoned. Old monitors, dusty keyboards, chairs pushed in neatly. The farther I went, the quieter it felt, like even the hum of the building faded. I reached the area where the voice seemed to come from and found nothing. I was about to turn back when I noticed one cubicle lit up faintly. A monitor was on. It showed the same login screen we all used, username and password fields waiting to be filled. I was certain it hadn't been on earlier. That glow would have been obvious. The keyboard beneath it was dusty, untouched. As I stepped closer, the screen went black. Not powered down, but logged out. A blank screensaver appeared, the company logo drifting slowly across a blue background. I didn't stay. I went back to my desk and put my headset on. A few minutes later, footsteps started up again behind me, closer than before. The last incident happened during my final week. It was close to 4 in the morning. There were only 12 of us working, and calls had almost stopped entirely. I decided to use the restroom. The bathrooms were at the far end of the floor, past several dark sections. I brought my phone, but kept the flashlight off, letting the ambient light guide me. Halfway there, I heard footsteps behind me. They weren't pacing this time, they were following, keeping the same distance, matching my speed. When I stopped, they stopped. I didn't turn around. When I reached the bathroom door, I went inside and locked it. I stood there in the dark, listening. After a few seconds, I heard something outside, the sound of fingers tapping lightly against the door. Once, twice, then nothing. I stayed there until my phone rang with an incoming call notification. When I came out, the hallway was empty. I finished my shift and never came back. Sometimes I still wake up around 3 in the morning, certain I hear footsteps just out of sight. And sometimes, right before I fall back asleep, I think I hear someone say my name, softly, as if they're standing just beyond the edge of the light, waiting for me to look. I never do. I learned early on that attention seems to encourage whatever was moving through that building. The veterans understood that. That was why they stayed quiet, why they didn't react. Silence wasn't ignorance, it was caution. I found another job within a week, one that kept normal hours. I told myself that the change would be enough. Daylight has a way of flattening things, of making them easier to dismiss. But the habit stuck with me. Even now, I avoid large, open offices. I don't like working late when floors empty out and the lights dim automatically. I choose desks near windows or walls, places where there's nothing behind me. It isn't fear, not exactly. It's adjustment. A few months after I left, Denise sent me a message out of the blue. We hadn't talked since my last shift. She said management was consolidating floors, moving the night team into a smaller space near the elevators. Too many complaints, she said. Too many people quitting. She didn't mention the sounds. She didn't have to. I asked her, carefully, if things were quieter now. Her reply came a long time later. "It follows the empty spaces," she wrote. "Always has." I didn't ask her what she meant. I already knew. Some nights, when I'm alone in a room that's too big and too quiet, I feel the same awareness settle in. Not pressure, not threat, just presence, like something waiting for the lights to go off so it can move again, unseen, between places where no one is supposed to be. I make a point of keeping some noise around me now. A radio left on low, the hum of a fan, anything to blur the edges of silence. Complete quiet feels unfinished, like a space that's been prepared for something else. I've noticed that my sleep has changed. I wake more often, usually without a reason I can name. When I do, I lie still and listen, the way I used to at work, waiting to hear if anything is moving. Most of the time there's nothing. Occasionally there's a sound I can't place, a shift of weight, a soft scrape, never close enough to be certain. I don't talk about it with anyone. There's nothing concrete to explain, no event I could point to and say this is why I feel this way. It's easier to let it fade into habit, into the background noise of daily life. But sometimes, when I'm in a large room after hours, I catch myself thinking about those dark sections of the floor, about how they were never truly empty, just unused, waiting. And I wonder if whatever moved through that call center is still doing the same thing, sliding quietly into places people stop paying attention to, following the absence of light and sound, not out of intent, but out of familiarity, because there are always empty spaces.
And something always seems to know when they appear. I try not to give it those spaces anymore. I keep doors open. I turn lights on even when I don't need them. When a room feels too still, I move through it instead of standing there, letting my presence break it up. Still, there are moments when I sense the same quiet attention I felt back then, not watching exactly, but listening, as if something is waiting for the right conditions, the way it always did. Waiting for a floor to empty, for voices to thin out, for the lights to dim on their own. I don't think it recognizes people. I don't think it ever did. We were incidental, temporary. What it followed was absence, gaps, places no one bothered to claim. That's what stays with me most, not the footsteps or the voice, but how patient it was, how it never forced itself into the light. It just moved when no one was looking, and stopped when they were. Sometimes late at night, when the city quiets and the buildings settle, I imagine offices like that one all over the place. Rows of desks, darkened hallways, entire floors left unused after hours. And I wonder how many of them feel empty, simply because no one has thought to check.